AWS Workspaces desktop service. In this section, let's look at the Amazon Workspaces desktop service, which is a cloud-based desktop service. So what are the objectives? First, we will look at what Amazon Workspaces is all about. Then we'll look at the features of Amazon Workspaces or AWS Workspaces. We'll look at the various use cases where the workspaces can be applied. And then we'll look at the architecture of Amazon Workspaces. That's where we'll be spending most of the time. And as part of the architecture, we'll also look at how to launch a workspace and connect to the workspace. We'll also look at performance and latency issues related to workspaces or the cloud-based desktop. And then we'll look at security and cost model as part of this section. So what is Amazon Workspaces? Amazon Workspaces is really a managed desktop service that is in the cloud. And by the way, this is the symbol that is represented for a AWS Workspaces service. Notice there is a desktop in the cloud and you can access the desktop using an iPad-like device. That's the idea. The Amazon Workspaces allows you to easily provision cloud-based desktops, and you can provision any number of desktops for any number of users. You can access these desktops using your laptops, your tablets, and even something called zero clients, which are these dumb terminals that don't really have any operating system. We'll look at that in more detail later on. The end users who are going to be accessing the cloud-based desktop don't really have to have an AWS account. They're just a regular user. It's the account holder that creates the desktops in the cloud, and then anybody can use it. Any specific user who's assigned the desktop can use it. What is an Amazon Workspace? Amazon Workspaces is the service. Amazon Workspace is really an instance of a desktop. So it's a single cloud-based desktop. It is actually a replacement for a traditional desktop. It's available as a bundle of hardware and software. So when you get this desktop in the cloud, you're actually going to say, I want this kind of hardware and I want this software installed in it as part of the bundle. And these are all predefined bundles that are there that you just choose. The users connect to a workspace from any device. When I say any device, it can be your laptop, your own desktop, which can access the cloud-based desktop. It can even be thin clients like iPad-like devices, Android-like devices, tablets basically. And then it can also be zero clients, which are these dumb terminals. Once again, we'll look at that in great detail later on. And then using these cloud-based desktops, you can perform day-to-day tasks like regular desktops, except it's in the cloud. So what are the features? It's simple to use. When I say it's simple to use, it's easy to provision desktops using your console. It's as simple as going to the AWS console and launching a desktop. You don't really need any hardware or software because the hardware is a virtual machine that's in the cloud and the software is really the operating system that's also in the cloud. There is no maintaining, patching, and management of large physical desktop environments. This is more in conjunction with many organizations that want to have a virtual desktop. If they're going to be doing it in-house as a private cloud, then they have to manage all these different solutions. They have to get all the hardware, they have to get all the software, they have to manage a complex VDI solution, which is virtual desktop integration solution. You don't need to do any of these things. It's all in the cloud for you. It supports multiple devices. You can access your desktop from mobile devices like iPad, Kindle Fire, and Android. Of course, your desktop and laptop can also be used. You have to install a special client for that, but otherwise you can access your desktop from any of these different devices. It is secure. It is secure because the persistent storage that is in the desktop, which is the hard drive that is in the desktop, is actually backed up. It is in the AWS cloud. The remote display protocol, which is the protocol that is used to take the image of the desktop that is in the cloud and be displayed in the client, that is actually compressed and sent over a secure connection. And so nobody can really tamper with that. It also integrates with key management services if you want more security. In terms of features, you choose your hardware and software that you need. there are predefined bundles that are available with set amounts of CPU, memory, and storage, and you can choose whatever matches the user's requirements. These come with pre-installed operating systems and apps, including the Microsoft Office. Currently, you can only do Windows. That is the only operating system that's supported. And if you want, you can also bring your own licenses, which is the Windows licenses, or any kind of licensed software that you want to install in your virtual desktop. There is no upfront investment. You don't have to buy any hardware, software, or license, but you simply pay using a monthly pricing model. You can also integrate with your corporate directory. Many organizations already have a corporate Active Directory with which they manage their Windows authentication, the user management, user preferences. You can, if you want, integrate with your corporate directory. There's a mechanism to do that integration. This is when we talked about SaaS, we talked about how you may want to integrate with your own internal services. This is a classic example of that. In terms of use cases, that is, when would you use a cloud-based desktop? First, you have mobile device access. If you want to access your desktop from any mobile device like iPad, Kindle Fire, or Android, you can do that by simply installing a client and accessing it through the client. If you want that capability, then you may want to use a cloud-based desktop. If you want secure desktops, this is a great mechanism. It helps organizations that meet stringent compliance in terms of standards, PCI DSS standards, or ISO 27001 standard, or ISO 19001 standards. These are all standards of security and privacy. If you want to meet those standards, you can go ahead and create a desktop in the cloud and have the users log in from their own desktop. In this way, all the data that is stored in that computer, in that desktop, is all following all the rules of these standards. Remote employees. It provides access to remote employees without having to store data locally. So if you're working from your home or you're working from a remote location, which may not be as secure as corporate offices, right? They're not as secure as corporate offices. If you're going to be working from there, you can ask the user to use their own desktop to log in into this remote desktop and access the service. So it's great from a security perspective from that angle. It's also great for seasonal workers. Many companies, they hire short-term project employees. For example, during the tax season, H&R Block hires a whole bunch of employees. They will have to get PCs for them. It's better to launch these desktops in the cloud for them. Students, many training institutions, they want to hire laptops and desktops so that they can train. Well, you can simply launch desktops in the cloud and use dumb terminal-like devices to access those desktops in the cloud and then clean it up for the next semester. Developers. It provides workspace for developers. An organization can create a desktop environment with all the necessary software, all the IDEs, all the tools that they need, and simply launch the desktop in the cloud, and the employee simply logs into the desktop. Many organizations are looking at this as a mechanism for keeping their source code secure. So this is something that's coming up. Now I know developers don't like that. They like to keep all the source code within their own machine, but security guys love this feature. Especially if you're going to be working from locations which are not very secure, this may be a good option. Okay, so let's look at the workspace's architectural components. We're going to look at bundles, supported clients, PC over IP, zero clients, WordDocs sync, and custom images as part of this section. Let's start with directory. Well, a directory is really a managed Active Directory. A directory is actually an AWS service that is kind of connected to Workspace's services. We need to understand directory a little bit so that we can launch AWS Workspaces. So a directory is really a managed Active Directory. It's a hierarchical data structure. It stores user authentication and authorization information. And the communication to the directory is done using what is called the LDAP protocol, which is the Lightweight Directory Access Protocol. You need a directory for launching workspaces. So it's an important component of AWS Workspaces. The workspace has to exist in an Active Directory. Okay, having said that, the only point I want you to remember at this point is you need to have some kind of a directory service. Now, you can surely integrate with your existing directory that you have within your organization, which has all the users and their preferences and the authorization information in it, or you can create a directory in the cloud. And you will see that as you are working through creating and launching a workspace, you'll be asked to create a directory. So all I want you to remember is that a directory is really a location for managing user information, authentication information, and authorization information. Bundles. A bundle is really a combination of hardware and software. The hardware is really the CPU, the memory, and the storage that's associated with that bundle. And there are several kinds of offerings that make up a hardware. There's value, there's standard, and there's performance offerings. And as you go down this offering, you'll realize that the computing power, the memory, and the storage gets better and better. In terms of software, your operating system is Windows. It's, I think, Windows 7 and Windows 8 at this point. Hopefully in the future they'll support other operating systems, but right now they're only supporting Windows. And if you think about it, you can always launch Ubuntu yourself as a regular virtual machine. This is more of a Windows desktop. And they have several types of offerings for the software too. You have a base offering, which is really just the operating system. There is no Office software. And then there's a Plus offering with Office software, and there are different versions of Office software that will be supported. For example, Office 2010, Office 2013, and in the future, if there are other Office versions, that will be supported too. So how do you launch a workspace? There are two different launch consoles that are available for you. One is the quick setup, and the other one is the advanced setup. The quick setup is available for you if you have never launched AWS service, and the advanced setup is available for you once you've launched it once, then you know how to do it, so you can go to the advanced setup. We'll look at both of them. In quick setup, it's a fast and easy setup. It sets up a directory in the cloud on your behalf automatically, sets up a VPC internet gateway on your behalf automatically. It's less flexible in terms of configuration, but it's very fast to get a workspace running. That's the quick setup. The advanced setup is a little bit more complex because you are expected to create an Active Directory or select an existing Active Directory if you don't have one. You're to create an Active Directory connect if you want to connect to your existing Active Directory that is back in your premise. You can do that. So it's more flexible from that perspective. And also you can indicate whether you want your drives to be encrypted. You can also select VPC. The advanced setup is a little bit more flexible option. What we'll do is when I do the demo, I'll do the advanced setup. Okay, so quick launch, very easy to launch a workspace. All you have to do is create a user. You have to have at least one user to launch a workspace. You create a user with the following information: username, first name, last name, email. The email address is important because when the workspace is launched, an email is sent to the user with authentication information. And then a bundle type. What kind of bundle do they want? What is the hardware and software combination? And then you simply click launch button. Once you click the launch button, it starts building the workspace, and it creates a single workspace, a single virtual machine for that particular user. Multiple users don't share a single workspace. One is created for that particular user. It takes about 20 minutes to launch the VM, and then an email is sent to the recipient. In the advanced setup, you are expected to, in step 1, create or select a directory. Remember, a directory is really a hierarchical database which stores user information, authentication information, and authorization information. It's an Active Directory, Microsoft Active Directory implementation. If you don't already have a directory, you're to create a simple Active Directory in the cloud and then select it. If you already have an Active Directory, then you select that one. If you have a directory in your premise, then you can use AD Connect, which is Active Directory Connect, to connect to that directory. We are not going to look at that option because we don't really have an enterprise right now that has an Active Directory Connect in it, but I do want you to understand that it's possible for you to do that. When you create an Active Directory, you are to give an organization name. It must be unique because it uses that name to be part of the DNS. You should also have an admin password. That is the administrative password. That is not the password for the workstation. And then you can also give VPC details, which VPC you want to create this directory in. In step 2, you select the users. Well, If you already have the Active Directory with the users in it, you can select the users, or you can create the users and add it to the directory and select one or more users for whom you want to launch a workspace. You select the bundle for your users. For every user, you can select a bundle. And the point I'm making is that you can actually create 10 different workstations or workspaces all in one shot, and each having their own user bundle. You can also select encryption, what kind of encryption you want for the drive volumes. There's a C drive and there's a D drive. You can select whether you want to encrypt that. And then you simply click the launch button. Once you click the launch button, it'll take about 20 minutes to launch the VM, and every recipient, every user will receive an email. How do you connect to the workspace? Well, the workspace is in the cloud. In order to connect to the workspace, you need a client. So you need to click on a given link. There's a link that you'll get as part of the email. You click on the link, you complete the profile, and then you download and install the client program, which is the Workspace's client program. If it's not already installed, you may want to do that. And then you use the client program to access the Workspace VM. When I do the demo in the hands-on section, you'll see all these things happening. But at this point, I want you to understand the basic architecture, which is launch a workspace by creating a user in a directory, and then you connect to the workspace or the cloud-based desktop using a client program. There are different kinds of clients that are supported. You can download a client for your desktop, which could be Windows or Apple. You can also download a client for your tablets. Apple iPad, Kindle Fire, and Android tablets are supported. Notice mobile phones are not supported right now. You can also use zero clients. Zero clients are these dumb terminals that uses PCOIP, which is PC over IP technology, to emulate the workspace. We'll learn more about that in the next slide. Okay, so what is PCOIP? PCOIP is PC over IP. It's a protocol that's developed by a company called Teradata, which is a private company. It's a proprietary protocol. AWS guys have actually partnered with this company in order to implement a high-quality workstation communication mechanism. It's the protocol that the client, which is the client that is installed in your workstation, which is your local workstation or tablet, which allows you to communicate with the cloud workstation in order to emulate your cloud desktop in the local client. The protocol encodes, encrypts, and compresses all the data that is in the cloud desktop and then transmits those pixels to the client so that the client can display it. So it makes it look like your desktop is running right there. It uses UDP to reduce the bandwidth. There are three characteristics of PCOIP that I would like to go over. One is host rendering, the other one is multi-codec protocol, and the third one is dynamic network adaptation. So let's look at that. Host rendering. The regular PC, it tightly couples the application, the operating system, and the graphics driver to display the graphics in an optimized fashion for high performance. So here's your PC, and it kind of puts everything together, kind of couples everything together for getting high performance. Well, there are some client rendering protocols. What they do is they take your PC, and what they do is they kind of separate out the display, and they send the display information over the network to the display. So the rendering protocol separates the components through a network, but the reality is that this gets poor performance. The PC over IP implementation by Teradata uses what is called the host rendering technique. And in this model, what they do is they actually render everything in the host, and then they broadcast the encrypted and compressed pixel across to the client. So the rendering is taking place right here. It's what is called host rendering. Versus in the regular model, the rendering takes place right there within the PC for performance. But other protocols, the way they render it is they send all the rendering information to the client, and the client renders it. This is considered to be poor performance. So the Teradata guys have come up with this proprietary technology, which is their technology that allows you to do this. PCOIP also supports multi-codec protocol, and the idea here is that if you look at the workspace There are lots of images. There is the image for the background. There's also these icons. And rather than encoding the entire thing as an image, what they do is they actually look at the graphics and then they encode different aspects of the screen differently. So for example, if they have text or icon or photos or videos, they're all encoded differently. Notice I have these different colors over here that indicate different kinds of encoding for the different kinds of text. The video will be encoded one way, the image will be encoded one way, the text will be encoded one way. This is what they call intelligent decomposition. So they smartly decompose the image and encode it differently, and that makes it for efficient transmission. So this is something PCIOP supports. There is also dynamic network adaptation, and the idea here is that when you're sending the images over the network, in this case the encrypted compressed images over the network, it depends upon what your network bandwidth is all about. You can actually set the quality, minimum quality and maximum quality that you want to support. So there's a range that you've given, and in that model what it does is that it automatically, depending upon the bandwidth that you have, adjusts the quality of the image. So it's a range that you give. This is very similar to what you notice in Netflix. If your quality of network connection is poor, then you will see that the video is still showing up, but it's just poor quality video because they want you to watch the movie. It's a similar concept. You want to have a continuous experience of the desktop that is in the cloud, but the quality may be a little bit poor. So it automatically adjusts this. Again, all these things are part of PC over IP, which is all integrated as part of the Amazon workspaces. You don't really need to do any of these things. They've already done all these things for you. There's also this concept called zero clients. Zero clients is really the idea that you can have clients that don't really need much and still be able to emulate a cloud-based desktop. So with zero clients, you don't really need an operating system. You don't really need any applications. You don't really need any CPU. You don't really need any RAM. You don't need any hard drive, no graphics processor, no fan, none of that stuff. Nothing. You don't really need any of these things, right? It's a dumb client. All you need is a system that has this thing called the Teradiki. All you need is a system that has the Teradici or the Teradiki chip. That's it. The stateless zero clients have single, highly integrated, purpose-built processor, which is this chip right here. It's powerful enough to emulate the PC. That's it. There are these terminals that are available. If you want, you can look it up. These terminals are available, and you can buy these terminals, implement it, and you can access these desktops. So you don't even need a laptop. You don't even need a desktop. These zero clients will do the work for you. So what is the advantage of these zero clients? Well, it's secure because there is no local data, and because there is no operating system, no apps, no CPU, no RAM, it's smaller footprint, generates less heat, lower power, and it's simple and easy to manage. There is also this concept called WorkDoc Sync. WorkDoc Sync is really a client application that you install in the workspace. And what it does is it continuously and automatically backs up the documents into Amazon S3. So if your workspace ever has to be rebooted or is not available, is terminated, at least your data is available in S3. That's the idea. So the WorkDocs is really a synchronization mechanism. The closest analogy that I can give you for this is Dropbox, synchronizing your documents into the cloud. In this case, it's S3. You can also install WorkDocs in your client machine, which is your desktop, your personal desktop, which is not in the cloud. And then you can sync your documents from the cloud desktop into S3 and then also from S3 into your local machine. It works very similar to your Dropbox. You can also enable and disable on a per directory basis. What are the directories that you want to sync? Custom images. You can take a launched workstation and you can customize it. Once you log in, you can add or remove programs, you can set configurations, and then you can create a customized golden image of the customized workspace, create a bundle, and then you can use this bundle to launch other workspaces. So it allows you to customize your environment. You can create a bundle with all the necessary software for your developers, and then you launch that. So you don't have to go in and ask the developer to install all the different software. Performance and latency. If you want to increase the performance on your workstation, not a problem. Just get a bigger hardware bundle. You can do that. When streaming, the image is compressed for less latency. That gives you a better performance, better latency. Also, when it comes to workspaces, it is not available in all regions. This service is available only in certain regions as of this writing. It's available in Northern Virginia, Oregon, Ireland, Singapore, Sydney, and Tokyo. As long as you create a workspace which is about 2,000 miles at most from the location where you are going to be accessing the workspace, you should be okay. You should get low latency and you'll be able to have a good experience. So make sure that you don't create a workspace in Northern Virginia if your client is going to be in Tokyo. That's 20 miles away. In terms of security, in terms of authentication, the workspace is accessed through user password in the directory, so it's secure from that perspective. It's also possible to enable multi-factor authentication if you want using Microsoft Radius Server. And if the user forgets the password, you can use the forgot password feature in the client to get a new password. In terms of patches, it's better to keep the patches up to date, especially the security patches. We all know about Microsoft security vulnerabilities. The administrator can also control the patch management if the administrator wants. And by default, Windows Update is turned on, but it can be customized to whatever updates you want it to be. In terms of malware, the user can install their choice of anti-malware software, but if you look at the Plus bundles, they already come with anti-malware software. If your workstation gets malware, that's your problem. That's not AWS's problem. In terms of encryption, it's possible to encrypt the disk volumes. You'll see that when you are creating the workstation or launching the workstation using the complex setup, you can actually encrypt the volume if you want. That's an option available for you. And when it encrypts, it uses default keys, but if you want, you can configure your own keys using the key management service. If you take snapshots, the snapshots are also encrypted. And the communication between the cloud workstation and the client is also encrypted. So security is taken very seriously. And if you notice that they are using encryption heavily. In terms of network security, the workstation is launched in VPC. It's always launched in a VPC. TCP ports 443 and 4172 should be open. And UDP port 4172 should be open between the client and the server. The UDP port is what is used for rendering images. And then the TCP port, HTTPS, is really your normal HTTPS port. In terms of the license model, out of the box, the price includes the license cost, which includes both the operating system and the application software licenses. For example, all the Microsoft products that you may have gotten as part of the Plus bundle. It's also possible for you to bring your own license. When you bring in your own license, you will have to talk to the Microsoft representative and the AWS account representative. You need to inform them as to which regions you're going to be using these licenses for, because if you look at Microsoft licenses, the operating system licenses, and the Microsoft product licenses, like the Office product licenses, these products cost different amount in different parts of the world. So you have to kind of work with them to figure out what price breaks you're going to get. You have to work with both the AWS account manager and the Microsoft account manager in order to bring your own license. And the reason you may want to bring your own license is because you may have already bought license for your enterprise and you want to use that license as part of getting your workspace online, which is your cloud-based workspace. But any other software that you install on workspaces that requires license, your responsibility. AWS is not going to be liable for breaking the law. In terms of cost model, You're priced on a monthly basis, prorated daily. So if you use the service only for 7 days, you'll be paying only for 7 days. The price includes, of course, the hardware, the operating system, the software license, which is the Office license, part of the Plus bundle. And also you may have to pay for AWS resources that are used for Connection Manager, which is zero clients. Now, when you're using zero clients, you do have to launch something called the Connection Manager. I didn't talk about that. In order for you to run a zero client, you need an AWS EC2 instance for rendering certain things, because your zero clients actually talk to this Connection Manager, and the Connection Manager talks to the desktop. There has to be this translation layer. And so for that, you will have to launch the AWS EC2 instance, and there may be some price associated with that. There is no additional charge for workstation client software. In other words, you can install the client in your Android device, in your iPad device, in your 2 laptops and 1 desktop. No charge for that. Streaming bandwidth cost is also taken care of. Remember, the desktop images are being streamed to the client. That is taken care of as part of the license. There will be no additional charge for the PCOIP Connection Manager software also. So the only charges for the EC2 instance for the Connection Manager. In summary, AWS Workspaces is really managed desktop in the cloud. It's simple to use. You can use the console to launch workspaces in the cloud. It supports multiple devices like tablets and desktops and laptops. It's secure and available. You can choose the hardware and software you need. There is no upfront cost or investment. You pay on a monthly basis. Integrate with your corporate directory if you already have an Active Directory. In terms of use cases, it's great for accessing your desktop from mobile devices. It's a secure desktop scenario. It's great for remote employees, great for seasonal workers. So you don't have to buy these workstation machines and figure out what to do once they're done. It's great for students in a training institution or university institution. It's great for developers, where you can pre-package the different software that they need and launch the workspace in the cloud. In terms of architectural features, there are predefined bundles. There are different kinds of supported clients, including zero clients. PCOIP, which is PC over IP, is the protocol that gets used. Custom images can be created. You can also synchronize the data in the cloud workspace into S3. In terms of performance and latency, you can get bigger hardware for better performance, and you may want to deploy in a region that's close to you for getting low latency. In terms of security, there's built-in authentication, which is user password. You can also use two-factor authentication. Auto updates are turned on. Malware protection is available for you. The Plus bundles. The communication is encrypted between the client and the desktop. And also storage can be encrypted. And there are limited open ports in terms of network communication. In terms of license, the price includes the license for the operating system and the software for Microsoft Office, provided that you're going with the advanced bundles. You can also bring your own license to get a break on the cost for the license.